Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another edition of the Wrestling Underground podcast. I'm your host, as always, Chad Porto. Joining me, as always, is the glorious one himself, Marcus Green. Marcus, how the heck are you?
I'm okay, man. Glad to be back on another Tuesday.
I am excited for this week's show. It's not going to be very heavy. It's not going to be very deep. It's not going to be very long, but I think it's still going to be very tolerable. We left off last week talking about Bully Ray and his comments on what was the best moment in TNA wrestling history. And I had said, I think we need some time to percolate on this. I've had a week. I don't think I have the right answer, but I do have a couple that I think are better than Bully Ray's. Because I want to be very clear. The Dixie angle wasn't some end all be all moment. I don't know why Bully Ray pretends it is. Because, it certainly didn't help things. They were still off of Spike TV by the end of the year. That had more to do with Vince Russo than anything, sure. But I don't think it was this galvanizing moment. Right? It's very rarely, because, she's not even, she's a minor shareholder in the company still, that's it. She doesn't appear on TV, hasn't appeared on TV in a decade. Right? I think they, Bully Ray specifically, I think Bully Ray overvalues the moment significantly. And I think he does it because he's a certified egomaniac, right? He's this generation's Hulk Hogan in a lot of ways. Just has to be right, has to be over, has to be that guy. I think when you think of TNA, it's either a moment that is constantly on replay. It is a moment that is constantly defined the promotion. It is a moment that boosted the promotion, or it is a moment that delivered one of the greatest wrestlers to the promotion. So I have a few. The first being in 2003 Raven debut. It may not be as known, it may not be as popular, it may not be as cited. But when you look at the landscape of the company, Raven was the first major acquisition they got from the WWE. And his arrival changed the entire dynamic of the company. Now, bad booking, politics, yada yada got in the way, prevented him from becoming a bigger name than he could have been within the brand, but he still had a good 5-ish, 6-year run. Then we have, of course, the first Ultimate X match. Only match of its type, defined a generation, defined a style, defined an era. Had some of the best spots and moments, and eventually would of course, turn into the Elevation X match, which also had some pretty great moments. So the debut of the Ultimate X match, right there. Elite Skipper's Cage Walk. Of all the highlights, of all the moments, of all the things, if you never saw another wrestling clip, but you saw the Elite Skipper Cage Walk, you would know exactly what company that's from. Because it has never been done elsewhere, and for good reason. The debuts of Sting and Kurt Angle. Namely, the full-time return in 2006 for Sting in January, and Kurt Angle's September-ish, October-ish debut in 2006, not long after. Both monumental. Both huge. I would say the debut of Broken Matt Hardy. Not only did it help keep the promotion going creatively for a while, but it also became a creature, entity, concept that appeared in 2 different promotions, 3 technically, with Ring of Honor, and became not just a driving force for the Hardy Boys for years to come, but a driving force in production of wrestling, especially during the COVID-19 pandemic in 2020. Without the Broken Matt Hardy universe, I don't know if so many people get the entertaining wrestling they have in 2020, though I have certain feelings about the cinematic era, if you will. And then I think the return of TNA in 2024 is a monumental moment. Yeah, D'Amore was on his way out, but I think it set things up pretty well, and the company's been hitting on all cylinders, even without D'Amore. proof that D'Amore wasn't the catalyst for the promotion. They've had their biggest gates without D'Amore. They've had some of their best figures without D'Amore. I think they're in good places right now. And as long as they continue to move onward and upward, I think it's a good thing. Those would be moments that I now not to take away from Bully, right? Dixie going through a table is still pretty big. I don't think it's bigger than any of those moments. Marcus, is there a moment that you think that stands out, whether it's one I mentioned or whether that's one that you're thinking of yourself, that you think tops the Bully Ray Dixie Carter table spot?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely agree that it was it was a moment for better or for worse with the Dixie Carter thing. But real quick, before I go, question to you: do you think that moment was overhyped because it felt um, like one of the biggest metaphorical victories, at a time when the company desperately needed a practical one, but ultimately couldn't get one?
I don't know if it was overhype. I do agree that there was a little desperation to have that kind of a moment, especially in that era, right? That's not untrue. There was a genuine effort to try to get um, buzz going around the product, and while I don't think it delivered, I don't think it hindered anything. And I do think that of the era, it was a pretty significant moment. I just don't think it's the moment that everyone hypes it up to be, because when you look at the landscape of the promotion in the era that it happened, because this was 2014, the company still had ways to fall. We're not even talking about 2015. So it didn't help the promotion. It didn't stabilize the promotion. It didn't give so many eyes to the promotion that it was able to avoid the sinking disaster that was 2015, where we all thought the promotion was going out of business. And I think when you realize that it did not have a positive effect, that it did not move the needle, that it did not bring fans in, that it did not keep fans, it's hard to say that the moment was worthwhile. But considering that the company did fall into the doldrums, not because of it, but it did fall into the doldrums, there are money issues, booking issues, all that stuff. Despite that, it kind of felt like the culmination of the Dixie Carter era. While she would retain control for a while longer, it was a exclamation point on the product of the time. So if you look at it just from the end of 2013 to then, when she became an on-screen character and all that, I think it's fair to say that it was relevant for the 10 or so months that she was kind of the evil villainess of the promotion.
Yeah.
I just don't think you can look beyond that year. I would say it's the biggest moment of 2014 for the company. And while they didn't have a lot of things going on, they had the triple threat ladder match or the triple threat feud, I should say, with Team 3D, the Hardys, and the Wolves. They went to Japan for Bound for Glory. They inducted the Team 3D into the Hall of Fame. I think, did Kurt Angle win the world title in 2014? Bobby Lashley, I think, returned in 2014. I want to say. I'm just scrolling through Wiki to see who the champion was. Magnus, then Eric Young. Lashley won the belt in 2014. Eric Young won his first belt in 2014. Magnus won his first belt at the end of 2013. Bobby Roode won it again in 2014 and actually held it through Bound for Glory. So 2014 didn't have a lot of big moments, but it did have enough that I think you could compete with the table spot. I just don't think anything else truly does.
Yeah, I think you pretty much summed that up, like how I felt about it pretty much. I think like you said, more so than anything, was a culmination of events because she had, the tagline for that table spot is "Ding Dong, the witch is dead."
Mm-hmm.
Um, and to a certain degree, that's correct because, like you said, she had basically been a terror on screen, and for a lot of people who wasn't really in the know or didn't care to be in the know of what all the inner and outer workings were at the time in terms of just how much trouble they were in or headed in. A lot of fans didn't necessarily care, and all for them, whoever was in charge was the reason behind everything going down. So, whether it was her fault or not, to them, Dixie really was the problem. So seeing her go through a table, like I said, was a big moral victory, and even more than that, I always give her extreme amount of credit for even doing that spot because she didn't have to.
Mm-hmm.
And I think she legitimately got hurt doing it, which is not surprising when you look at, even with protection, she is a woman of a certain was a woman of a certain age even back then. So, um, hats off to her, and I appreciate the fact that they did, because so many times we talked about just how they didn't necessarily fully, I guess, pull the trigger with certain things and storylines or continue them in long form. That was probably about the longest form storyline they did that year. So, um, yeah, like I said, it was a culmination of events then, but it didn't necessarily trigger anything either good or bad past that. But it definitely was a moment. So, in terms of me, the moments that I was thinking about that you mentioned, I was definitely thinking about Kurt Angle debut, and then just his tenure thereafter because I think he was a huge, probably other than Sting more so than anybody else, he was probably their best acquisition in terms of a legend coming over and really kind of moving the needle for the company or being a significant guy for the company.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and then definitely the 2024 revival. Uh, been significant thing getting that name brand back in good standing. Um, and for me, probably just on the lower level for I guess an honorable mention is when their quote unquote guy at the time, or somebody that was touted for being the guy of the company for so long, finally got crowned as the guy in 2009 when AJ Styles won that championship,
Mm-hmm.
the world championship. So that was one of the ones that stick out for me. But they are, yeah, significantly definitely all the ones you mentioned. Because and then of course you can other honorable mentions just like all the stuff that they did in terms of setting a standard for women in the industry with all the first things they did with women across the board. A lot of people don't like to give them the credit, but they set the standard for what women could do at a time when they weren't doing that stuff for most of the women who essentially the industry is kissing the butt of today. So that company inspired a lot of women who never came there.
Yeah, the first title went in '07 with Gail Kim. The Kim Kong rivalry is definitely up there. Um, there's a bunch of matches you could say, but I don't know if they would be more impressive than the Bully Ray Dixie moment. Definitely the first title win by Gail is certainly, I think, in the conversation. And I don't know if anything beyond that.
Yeah, and I'm really glad you mentioned that Ela Skipper thing because it really is like an all time moment. Now we can obviously probably go down a list of people who probably could or would do that today. I wouldn't recommend it, and I'm glad it hasn't been attempted to be duplicated. But yeah, that was if you're gonna have a career defined by like one crazy move or moment specifically, and he did a lot of great other stuff besides that, but that was just a different level of insane at a very specific time. Today, it probably wouldn't be seen as significant just because at this point, throwing a damn destroyer off the top of a cage is considered normal. So, yeah,
Yeah, and like you can still have moments that stand out from the others. Like anytime Kurt Angle did a moonsault, like yeah, it's so commonplace to jump off a cage, right? But it's not always the same level, and
yeah,
I think that's important to note.
yeah.
Some
And speaking of Kurt Angle, even he just had to acknowledge one of his greatest perk moments with that cage that off the stage down.
Yeah, he did that flip on the abyss.
Yeah, yeah. Like, what the hell was I thinking? People was like, "Nah, Kurt." People was quoting to the hell out of that, "Nah, Kurt." We know what time it was. Oh man.
Certainly was. It was certainly perk o'clock. All right. Let's see what else we got on the table. This just happened. This is our taking over the internet right now, at least wrestling internet. So, and I don't know when this was. I'm just telling you because I now see it. The simple fact that Dominic Mysterio appearing on Logan Paul's podcast is hilarious. But what I think is even funnier is that, and I don't think it was to build up a storyline because I don't think Logan Paul is going to wrestle again. Not with all the controversy he's been under. But he had Dominic Mysterio on, and they were talking about the trip to Japan. And Dom, being the shit heel he is, he's like, "Why didn't you go? You should have gone. It would have been awesome." Logan's like, "I had prior responsibilities," and then Dom was like, "Were you shadow banned? Were you shadow banned? You should come next time." And he goes, "No, I was just really busy." And the coach was like, "No, he was just really busy." And then they kept talking. Dom said something like, "Yeah, man, you know it'd be great. You should wrestle in Japan and wear that hat again." And the hat that he's referring to is like that little monster hat he wore when he was in the Suicide Forest that caused all that controversy like a decade ago. He goes, "You should do that again. You like wear that hat." And Logan Paul got so mad, and he's not a good actor, so you know he wasn't paying. He's like, "That's too far. That's over the line, dude." And Dom's just laughing at him.
You
Marcus,
gotta
I think Logan Paul is the worst financial investment they've ever put into anyone. He might go in the ring to an extent. I don't think he's good though. Right? I don't think he's
you,
good at all.
no, you know what he is? He's something they can hold up when they want to be like, um, look what can happen when we bring people who have nothing to ever to done with our product inside of our product when they really want to take time and invest
Mm-hmm.
that whole thing because it's like now it's like how eager they were to move Randy Orton as the youngest to win a title in Brock's spot when Brock fell out with the company all them years back.
Mm-hmm.
They can now put Logan in Ronda's spot.
Yeah,
That's what that is.
I get that. Do you think they're building something between Dom and Logan for a future event? Because Dom really went after him, and it's funny, but like it could also be far more, yeah, wrestling centric. You know, like he may just be doing
Yeah,
these things for a laugh.
it's it's something. I tell you this, it's something that they can be a planted seed that they could always go back to because I feel like it is cool. It's really cool to see with Dominic right now, um, and he gets a lot of crap, which is the point. But there was a while that when he was with his dad, where we just didn't know. You root for the guy, and it's really cool to see, um, the father son duel. I mean, this precedes, what we're gonna get with, I guess, with LeBron and Bronny, right? And
Mm-hmm.
it was really cool to see, but we just didn't know because it wasn't for fan. I mean, wasn't touching his dad in the ring. Certainly, his dad in his prime, and it just certain stuff just wasn't necessarily clicking. So when he turned heel in the Judgment Day and stuff, and things just started moving, and next thing you know, it's like he the most over heel in the company. He may be the most over heel in the freaking company. The fact that he literally still that storyline has damn near been 4 years old with the Judgment Day, 3 or 4 years old, and he still can't even get a good word in edgewise on the mic the second he starts talking is insane. Uh, so I think that is definitely a planet seed that they could always go back to. The only reason why I don't think they do it anytime soon is because they don't necessarily want to. They don't consistently do heel versus heel stuff. Um, so having those two type of guys go with each other might not necessarily be their bag. But if they do the thing that they did with Roman and keep Dom going for a while, and then eventually have him do something where, because I feel like it's always going to be a thing with him and Rhea. and it's weird because apparently there are some people, and I don't know why we're surprised with all the tribalism and just mental insanity we talk about with IWC, but there's some people who are taking that storyline way too seriously.
Mm-hmm.
Like they don't know that both of them are actually married in real life to other people.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so I think it's one of those things where it's like if something happens down the line and he ends up turning back face, say doing a run in and saving Rhea, and then he becomes as over with the crowd as a face as he was with a heel, then you can run that back. Because the last thing they need to do is ever try to turn Logan Paul face. So I feel like that's definitely a seed they can go back to later if they ever turn Dom face. Um, but even if they never do, kudos to him for giving them shit because he absolutely deserves it at every point of contention you can give it to him.
It certainly would be hard to turn Dom face after everything he's done. Mostly because so many people want to hate him, not even because he's bad, right? Some people just want to hate him because it's so fun to hate him, right? I think you got a better chance of turning Logan Paul face, but even then, most people just don't like Logan Paul. Like, it's not even like, oh, we want to hate Logan Paul. It's like they genuinely hate him. So like,
Yeah,
I feel like it'd be impossible to do.
I don't know. I think that Logan Paul's done too much stupid stuff in real life. Most recently, that whole thing with the Olympics.
Mm-hmm. Oh,
That's
he's
just
being
too.
Elon Musk and J.K. Rowling are being sued by her, by the way.
I mean, as they should. J.K. Rowling sticks. I don't know what their pronoun they identify, whatever. But that person sticks their nose out there at times for stuff that's like you really like you could just really remain quiet as that author person, but they have consistently every time they come out as something they're on the wrong side of history. Um, and Elon is just we know what type of idiot he is, so that makes sense. But I'm glad that's happening. Uh, I think she said she's going after probably as many people as she can for all the stuff that she got. But to me, when it go back to Logan Paul, I think he's just done too much stuff in real life as being an idiot. And that prime thing, I don't think it's helping him ingratiate him to that audience. And I think it would be a hell of a endeavor to do with Dom, but I think it would be easier to do it with him potentially doing something with Rhea because of how much people are obsessed with couple culture.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? And they prefer that'll be easier to do because Rhea has been getting treated like a face by the audience when she was heel anyway. So the fact that they've actually turned her face now, and then like I said, to potentially do something down the line with him when he maybe grows, potentially get some more muscle on him, change the look, actually becomes a quote unquote man on screen, and then to come back and save his gothic mommy all those years later. I think it could work. But Logan is just he's like an asshole through and through. It's like he is like I think to the audience what we constantly tell people how they should feel towards Orton.
Mm-hmm.
But Orton's gets all that laud and praise just because he is, a legend in real time and this, that, and the third. And he hasn't consistently done in recent times as much dumb stuff, if any, than Logan. Like Logan just has a consistent. I don't know if he can help it at this point. Like it's weird.
Yeah, I agree. Weird is certainly optimal word, I should say. As far as if they're gonna get together, I don't see it happening. I think I think this is more real than people will want to admit, and if they try to turn this into something, it could be worth watching, right? And I don't think, and we'll get to this conversation here in a bit. I don't think the current writing staff can make a Logan Paul Dominic Mysterio feud work. I just don't see it happening. They're not that good. Um, Next up we have a very interesting conversation. because it involves the NWA Power, and it's the name of this show. It's called Into the Trash. Name the show this week after this, just for shits and giggles, right? I decided I wanted to watch NWA Power. Why not, right? Went and found it on the CW website. Booted up 3 episodes. I think it's the last 3 episodes of that wrestling I'll ever watch. One, whoever the top stars in the NWA are, I'm not sure they're stars that you want. There's a few names that I keep tabs on because I'm interested, right? The tag team of Odinson and JR Kratos. EC3 is world champion. Aaron Rex is or Damian Santa, whatever you want to call him, is a manager. Let's see what else. Kerry Morton has a lot of potential. Colby Carino has a lot of potential. And when I watched these 3 episodes, I saw a Colby Carino match. It was a squash match. A glorified squash match. EC3 took on someone whose name I don't remember because he wasn't a serious threat. Max the Impaler was super promoted, but ended up being on in the middle of the show. They had a U.S. tag team title match because they have 2 sets of tag team titles to headline one of the shows to crown new champions. And I think one of them was like Talos and Daisy Kills, I think is what his name is. And Daisy Kills is pretty cool. I think Daisy Kills has a career ahead of him. Just not in the NWA. And Vampiro was involved with that. And Vampiro's in the midst of battling dementia, right? Like, he's got issues, and he's still being used predominantly on television. But like Kerry Morton didn't wrestle. You know, the top women didn't wrestle. The top tag team, which I think is one of them is what was his name? Red Dog. I forget his name. He was married to Jazz. I forget his name. Rodney Mack. One of them is Rodney Mack. I think the other one is. He was in TNA for a while when Billy Corgan took over. Marche Rocket, I think. And they're known as Carnage and Damage. So it's Marche Rocket is Carnage. And then Rodney Mack is Damage. And they're not a great tag team. They don't move well. Marche's okay. But Mack is 53. So it's kind of one of those things where I kind of just shrug like, okay. Clearly we're trying too hard here. The Fixers, that's who the other guy, the other tag team was in the U.S. title match. Oh, well, one thing I will say, and I just saw this by happenstance. Tim Storm, who is 60, still wrestles. He's currently in a tag team with Jax Dane. And this is honestly, actually one of the things I enjoyed. It's the only thing I enjoyed, and it may make the list for best gimmicks of 2024. It involved Tim Storm donning the same robe that former villainous heel wrestler Baron von Raschke used to wear. And now he goes by Baron von Storm. And he has the gauntlet on his right hand, and he's constantly just trying to squeeze people's heads. And it's hilarious. It's absolutely daft, and I love it. It's stupid. And it makes me giggle. Because he's 60, and he still looks like a hoss. And it's great, and I love it. But it's just one of those things where, like, I don't know if a better booker could make anything more out of this. But these 40-odd minute shows are just not great. And they're putting too much emphasis on people that I don't care enough about. Like, the women's division is made up of, like, pretty generic mean girl stereotypes, and it does not work. The tag team division is very old and slow. There's no real heavyweight challengers for EC3. I didn't see any of the other singles champions outside of Max. And I'm just kind of wondering, like, who's booking this? Why are they booking this? Like, why are they giving the guys that they're giving the pushes they're giving? Like, the matches aren't entertaining. The characters aren't enthralling. The commentary is tepid at best. It's better because it doesn't have Velvet Sky on it, which was not great. But it wasn't good. Marcus, when was the last time you watched POWERR?
Jesus. I want to see. Maybe last year I tried to watch the episode because we were talking about it. Um, and I watched it, and it was just like the very definition of ho hum. It was just, it was not good. It like, because I remember when we was, heavy off into it all those years ago. Seemed like a lifetime ago now when it, into the fire and all that. Like it looked like a very uh, classic style wrestling product back then. Now it just looks cheap. Last time I definitively sat down and watched it was, damn, maybe that last tag tournament they had.
Mm-hmm.
And it's funny because you were listing off names. I didn't hear you mention the Pope. Is he still there?
Not that I saw. He might be, but they didn't feature him in any of the episodes I watched.
Homicide.
Nope.
That father son tag team duo. They still there?
Nope. Not that I saw.
Yeah. Tim Storm. Appreciate him. Glad he's still there. Jack Stain. He's great because he was teaming with Crimson for a while, wasn't he?
Yeah, at least
Uh,
during their short run in TNA.
yeah. So there's that. I think he's security somewhere now. Um,
He was working as a producer for the NWA.
got you. So, but yeah, a lot of those names I'm familiar with, but they don't really pique my interest in any regard. And uh, you know this, correct me if I'm wrong. So when Nick left, obviously Camille stayed what another however many years, what 2, 3 years. Uh,
Who, Camille?
yeah,
Yeah, I think maybe 2 years, maybe not even, maybe a year.
got you. But ultimately, she didn't have a longer tenure than him in the NWA, correct?
I think so.
Okay. So yeah, I mean, once I think ironically enough, I think that it was definitely like the writing, more of the writing was on the proverbial wall when she left because it felt like she would have kind of seen something uh, for as long as close as she had been with him that when Nick left, that she kind of would have seen, well, this might not be the place to stay too much longer, but she stuck it out, and I think it was to her benefit because she did have a crazy run, something that was likely similar to what he did with the NWA title with the women's title. So, um, but I think the fact that you've seen her left and no other notable names pass through there, some cool stuff with the women, but like I said, nothing that's really moving the needle. I think ultimately it just feels like whatever novelty it had, particularly when we were watching and excited about it every Wednesday for that hour we watched it, just the novelty is just worn the hell off of it. And it's just not. It's like it's watered itself down to the point where it's not even don't even feel like it's nourishable anyway anymore. You don't even feel like it's quenching any type of thirst, no type of old school thirst, modern, but barely, not even classic anymore, barely modern. It really doesn't have any place to go beyond that. It's sad, but it's kind of just what it's fallen into, and it's really fallen into a time where we're seeing other stuff evolve. Stuff in New Japan is heating up. They're building a whole new generation, kind of having to with everybody that left. TNA is on the upswing. WWE, the hottest it's ever been, and it's collaborating, whatever,
Mm-hmm.
however people want to define that as. And it's just they're just not the bee's knees on any level. You almost kind of forget they're a thing. They weren't even in my mind until you actually brought them up. So that says a lot. And I guess you tracked all this kind of back to Corgan, I guess, right?
Mm-hmm.
So Yeah, man, it sucks. I don't know what you can do. Like you said, they all technically have a TV deal, but that's not. I'm talking in terms of getting on main uh cable, straight up and down regular TV. Doubtful. So it sucks, man. But like I said before we kicked off the show, it kind of feels like they're in the spot that people are always wanting or touting about. That's the spot where TNA's at.
I think one of the things that to me stands out is that there is talent that I think is being overlooked. Jordan Clearwater is one of those names that I've been really into. Kerry Morton's one of those names I've been really into. Colby Carino is getting so much better each and every month. It seems like he's as good of his as his father, because his father is Steve Carino. He's as good as his father is at his age right now. I think he's like 25, 26, maybe he's 27. I would say that Colby at 27 is as good as his father was at 27. Now the thing is his father kept getting better. He was never a big athlete, and he wasn't someone that like defied expectations. But I would say that he was smart. He was effective. He was efficient. He was everything like. So like you were laughing before because of that Shawn Michaels Bret Hart tweet, and that Shawn Michaels Bret Hart tweet basically said something to the effect like Shawn Michaels is more influential because he's easier to essentially copy, as opposed to Bret Hart, who is harder to copy because Shawn Michaels flew around the ring, was super charismatic, but only ever threw so many moves and just bumped a lot. While Bret Hart was a master tactician, a true savant, a true magician, artist, whatever you want to call him, in the ring. So to be as good as Bret Hart in the ring is nearly impossible. To be someone who flops around like Shawn Michaels, a little bit more likely. So you have the Young Bucks, Adam Cole, a slew of guys these days who are trying to emulate Shawn Michaels. Not Swerve. Trick Williams. Who's the other one? Trick's buddy. Former buddy.
Carmelo Hayes.
Carmelo Hayes. All these dudes have elements of Shawn Michaels in them, right? Even Andrade. They all have elements of Shawn Michaels in them. I honestly think that if you were to say who is the next guy up after Bret Hart, it would probably be Davey Richards, Bryan Danielson, and your low key dark horse pick that makes all the sense in the world to me, Davey Boy Smith Jr. He's one of the best workers in the world, but he doesn't get the same acknowledgement because he doesn't wrestle for the big feds that often. And I think when you think about that, like when you think about like how much easier it is to be a Shawn Michaels than a Bret Hart, it's really easy to kind of get lost in the scope of things when you look at the roster on the NWA, and you think to yourself, well, who should be the next guy up? And then you bring up Colby Carino, who is kind of in that Steve Carino echelon, like his father, and Steve Carino's a lot like Bret Hart in that regard. He's not someone like AJ Styles or Shawn Michaels or Swerve Strickland. Steve Carino was someone who, like with Bret Hart, focused on making the match as believable as possible. Now, Bret was tactical. He was a technician. Submission, armbar, leg bar. He'd do anything to set up the next hold. Steve Carino was that, but with brawling. All of his moves, all of his moments, all of the things he did set up to another. He wasn't a big body. He wasn't a big voice. He wasn't a big stature, but he always delivered, even into his 40s. Like, as he came to an end in his in-ring career, he was a tag team with Jimmy Jacobs when they were part of Kevin Steen's... Was it Kevin Steen's group? I think it was Kevin Steen's group. And I know Matt Hardy was a part of it. What was it called? I can't remember. But like even then, even when he was older, injured, overweight, and slowing down, he was still very effective. And I think Colby has a lot of his father in him. So like there's talent on this roster. They're not being highlighted enough to show this though. And I think that's holding them back. I think not working with other promotions is holding them back. I think focusing too much on this territory revival that they're going through, I don't think it's holding them back, but if it's taking away financial resources, it's a bad idea. Now, if they're running on their own and you're able to kind of have a faux house tour system or house show tour system with this, great. You can send your guys to Cleveland for Exodus. You can send them down to the Carolinas, whatever. But you're filming matches. I think that were filmed in May or June. Like Marcus, I looked up the shows I was watching, and it's brand new, and the match was filmed like 3 months ago. So clearly, there's something not registering with them putting town over the bigger shows that they're running. I don't know that Billy Corrigan is the right guy to book this, and I don't know he's the right guy to own this. He's fumbled the bag too many times. He lost Eli Drake, LA Knight. He lost Homicide. He lost Ricky Starks. He lost James Storm. Who else did he lose? Mr. Anderson was another name. He lost Nick Aldis. He lost Camille.
Yeah.
Melina. Like Thunder Rosa.
Yeah. Yeah, man. That they had a roster.
They did.
I was just thinking about that. Yeah, even that guy who was interviewing them, that kind of big stout guy.
Oh, yeah,
That was
Dave
in it.
Marquez. Even he left.
They had some personnel. Like you look at it, it's insane the roster that they had um, at the time, and obviously a lot of those guys, wanted to eventually get on a bigger platform, certain stages that were they at all now, and obviously certain people are thriving more than others. But I think they would have stayed there a lot longer had stuff been going better than it was. So, and it's crazy listening to it. It's like you're talking about what you're seeing versus when it was filmed. I'm like, so they having their world title series moment right now.
More or less, yeah.
Jeez.
More or less. It's not been great. That's for sure. It's not been great. I will continue to watch the NWA. I also watched MLW this weekend. They uploaded their second show from their Florida tapings. What is it called? Blood and Thunder? I don't think it's Blood and Thunder. Let's see. No. Blood and Thunder was last month.
Real quick, I think I know the answer to this. Who's them better moving on and stabilizing after mass exodus of talent, them or NWA?
That's a tough one. Because the MLW roster is not great right now. There's two reasons I'm watching. A guy named Akira. He's been fantastic. Let's see. I'm trying to figure out. There's a War Chamber. I guess Blood and Thunder was one of the shows. I think that was the first show. And then there's a second one. Oh, Never Say Never. That's what it was. So I wouldn't say either are particularly good. MLW has a few interesting names. Davey Boy Smith Jr. is there. Alex Kane is there. Our boy from Cobra Kai, Paul Walter Hauser, just had an MMA match with Tom Lawler. That was actually entertaining. It's not great, but it's good.
Right.
Minoru Suzuki is the new head of the Contra unit. The Contra unit used to be Jacob Fatu's stable. Janae Kai is someone that I think could replace Jordan Grace as the face of the Nagats division should she ever make the move. Satoshi Kojima is pretty good. Akira's pretty good. But they also are, and Misko's there. And Misko's one of the big reasons why I'm watching. But they are pretty bogged down by names that I don't, like Bobby Fish is there. They have a very big Japan roster at the moment. Kent is there. He's part of the Opera Cup. But also like Matt Riddle's a major player in this. I don't think Tom Lawler is what he used to be as a performer. So like there are limitations there. But they are doing the best they can, and they've put together a pretty interesting roster for the Opera Cup, which is their big thing at the moment. Kenta defeated Bobby Fish. This is all first round matches. Kenta defeated Bobby Fish. Akira defeated Akira Kwan, who's a member of Contra. Tim Thatcher's there. He lost to Davey Boy Smith in the opening round. Lawler defeated Jake Christ. Mystico defeated his, I think, cousin Magnus. Atlantis Jr. defeated Shigeo Okamura. Alex Kane defeated Mr. Thomas. And Bad Dude Tito defeated Danny Jones. Like, Bad Dude Tito is starting to build a nice brand for himself. He's part of the Mighty Don't Kneel, or at least was. I don't know if he still is. It's like there's talent here, but it's not like before when you had Fatu, Hammerstone, Holiday, Myron Reed. The roster's been turned over significantly. There's still enough guys to make you want to tune in, but that era is done. A guy who I think could be interesting, he needs to work on his physique though, is Brett Ryan Gosselin. He looks like Ryan Gosling, hence the name. I think he could be something, but he's at the beginning of his run, so he's got time to develop.
Gotcha. Real quick, what happened to that? Because it felt like it was a part of the show, but something that was separate too. When it first was emerging, that intrigued me. What happened to that whole like offshoot of Lucha Underground stuff?
So it's still kind of there. It's no longer as prevalent, the Azteca Underground.
Yeah.
The former head of Promociones de Rada, I think is what it was, has been revealed to be the daughter of El Jefe from Lucha Underground. And that's been mildly entertaining. So it's worth checking out if you're into some of the more obscure, obtuse, over the top stuff in pro wrestling. I think if MLW and NWA merged, though, I think they'd have a pretty strong roster. I think separately they don't. I think together they could have something really impressive. Especially if you kept guys like Paul Walter Hauser, who's obviously, a pretty significant Hollywood actor these days. Especially if guys like Alex Hayne, Davey Boy, Kojima, Suzuki, if they all stuck around, and you infuse some of the younger, more impressive NWA talent like Colby Carino and Kerry Morton and EC3, to grant he's not young, he's 41. If you incorporated those guys into one singular roster, I think you could have something really impressive.
Well, yeah, that would be intriguing to see if you're booking it. Whose vibe is you going? Are you going with more MWA or MLW?
MLW.
Overall, gotcha.
You have Suzuki and Kojima. Akira is a lot of fun to watch. I think he's a name that I think people should really keep focus on. Mystico is as good as he ever was. Janae Kai is one of the best female wrestlers in the world. She doesn't have a lot of talent around her to help her stand out, but there's a lot there that I think works. And they only post their shows currently every 2 weeks, I think now. So like they don't overload you, and they're like 2 hours and 40 minutes. It's pretty good. So it's definitely worth checking out if you're interested. Not so much the NWA stuff though.
Yeah, I'm familiar with a lot of Janae stuff. She's passing through Gleek as a part of Diamond Eagle. That girl's a beast. Yeah.
I'll definitely have to check out some more Gleet, because I know aren't the Strong Hearts a part of Gleet now?
Yeah.
Like the Strong Hearts.
Strong Heart. Yeah.
All right, last bit of thing. Online discourse has gone a while talking about the great Triple H's booking. Yet we're constantly reminded of the fact that certain guys, MVP and Bobby Lashley remind me, that certain guys haven't been booked well under him. And then, of course, there's the conversations around why some people have already been given up on, why some people are not being used regularly on television, why some people are being used regularly on television, looking at Karrion Kross. Do you think that Triple H's booking deserves the hype, be it good or negative, that he's currently getting online?
I think there's things to appreciate about certain uh, talent that have been brought out against the NXT purgatory hell of on the main roster of it all. I think there's something said about bringing back people's names, theme musics, and such. A lot of which have been associated with said NXT talents that were kind of floundering and middling hell, if you will. And obviously certain people coming back, like a Punk and whatnot. Obviously, even when Vince was still there, Triple H mended a lot of fences, particularly when it came to a lot of those old legends in terms of kind of corralling them to come back and then be in the Hall of Fame and reconcile with the company. Um, but in terms of his booking, like I said, we talked about this extensively, repeatedly. It's in comparison to what Vince was doing, and that's not a high bar, if a bar at all. When you look at what he did with Carrion, what he was doing with Carrion, that horrible group that Mustafa Ali was in charge of. Um, and then those are just two examples of the insanity that was going on under Vince. So for Triple H to just bring people out of that and just book them as regular people with a regular name consistently, that's cool and that's good, but that should be the bare minimum. It shouldn't be something like, oh my God, it's the best book of the year. So I think a lot of it is overhyped because people are constantly comparing it to um, the bar that was setting hell with Vince. Um, but it's a lot of stuff that Triple H hasn't gotten right, like a lot of inconsistencies, if anything, when it comes to the women. Um, we just saw, and I don't know how much he was behind this. We just saw whatever the hell that was between that Drew and CM Punk with the Rollins special guest referee match. That was trash. Um, and as we talked about before, certain talent, particularly ethnic talent, if you will, not necessarily having the best or most consistent booking. So I think it's like I said, it's some good stuff in there, but a lot of stuff was kind of already going on. I think you used the word on Twitter. Certain stuff was just inherited when
Mm-hmm.
he took over that he didn't start. Um, I wasn't behind. But again, when you're the guy that's running the show, you get all the cheers, all the boos. And I think he's getting a lot of cheers right now because the product's hot. In terms of certain things that's going on, that the business is booming more so than ever before, and it just seemed like they got all the balls in their court. But if you're a guy that knows sports extensively, and you're looking like this is not a good, this looking like a super team, but this is not a good mesh. Like y'all just want to put LeBron with everybody else, and then it's like, oh, it's the dream team. It's like, no, y'all need to wake up because it's a snooze fest. So yeah.
I think one of the most standout examples of why Triple H is not the guy, at least not the guy people claim him to be, involves Jade Cargill. Right after WrestleMania, even at WrestleMania, she was a pretty big to do. Because didn't she? It was her, Trinity, and Bianca in that 6-woman tag
Yep.
match right at
They,
WrestleMania.
yep. Debuted at the Rumble, then basically gave her the number one draft pick status with all those appearances across all three brands and whatnot. And who's gonna get her? SmackDown finally got her. Not too long after that, she would make the save a run in with Bianca and Naomi, and then you got the WrestleMania stuff. And now she's in a team.
She's not only in a team, she's not being used. She's in squash matches. She's working the house shows mostly. She appeared once on television in July. Every other match was on a house show. So, on one hand, perfect example. Rockets, strapped to her ass, shot to the moon, but then it fumbles, it falls to earth, and Triple H doesn't know how to get the momentum back, right? On the other side, you and I have talked about this before. Jade has the look, but she's the female Goldberg. She's the black female Khali. She's got the look, she's got the body. She does not have the skill set. She's athletic, but she's not so athletic in a way that you think she can get away with doing things like, say, like a Bianca Belair does. She stumbles, she hesitates, she her footwork's not always great. In a gym, she would be just a phenom to watch. But as an in ring, live action, in the moment, it's live pal kind of performer, she does not bring consistent A game material. You can find a way to get past that. Goldberg, prime example. But for whatever reason, Triple H either can't or doesn't want to. Because all the hype around Jade Cargill that I was seeing 3 months ago, gone. All the conversations on how she's an A-list talent, all the conversations about how she's a developing GOAT, all the talent, all the conversations about how she's one of the 3 best women in the roster already, all that's gone. One, it's gone because the bots that work so tirelessly to pump out WWE propaganda has to stay attentive to the actual product. And if she's not involved in the product, they don't get to talk about her because these are farming bots. And they can only farm off of GIFs and headlines. Nothing original. And that's why they're successful. Because they're unoriginal. So there's obviously a reason why Jade's not in the conversational zeitgeist at the moment. Because, the big farming social media platform profiles aren't invested in people who aren't being invested in. On the flip side, though, if this woman was so good, she should never have 3 months where she's tapered off. And I think part of that falls on Triple H. You brought her in with so much pomp, so much circumstance, so many people were over on her, and then you just stopped caring. Same thing with Bobby Lashley, same thing with MVP. I don't even know if Cedric Alexander still has a job.
Yeah, he's popped up and he's now in NXT helping the younger guys. Um, and speaking of, quick question to you in terms of Jay Cargill. For you, if you're oversighting, like if you're over Triple H, if he was that committed to bringing Jay again and keeping her, and certainly, I guess, in aura name as being that big of a star, but he was deeply committed for her picking up the fundamentals. Do you think, the hindsight being what it is and looking at it now, do you think he just should have had her go to NXT?
Yeah. I don't even think that's a debate. I,
Yeah.
I think I said that when she debuted. I think I said flat out, like, she's going to struggle. Because she was not that good when she left NXT, not NXT, when she left AEW.
Yeah.
She struggled to find her footing. She got an unnecessary push because for some reason people fell in love with her physique and look, but she had zero talent at the time. Now, from where she was in her first match to now, night and day. Like, you could build a solid mid-card feud with her, and I think you'd be good. I don't think we're at a place, however, where you can put her on her own in a main event feud right now. And considering the lack of top level talent in the WWE women's roster, I think you would. I think you'd be very surprised that if you just if you looked at the fact that this roster is not that deep at the main event level,
Yeah.
and you realize how few people there are right now in terms of main event caliber, to feud with the top stars. In any other scenario, if we're talking about any other talent, Jade Cargill would already be up there, right? And yet
Yeah,
we're recycling through people like Nia Jax, who even 10 years ago, when she was younger and wasn't 40 already, wasn't good. And now she's even older, slower, more injury prone, and she's getting title wins instead of Jade Cargill. What does that tell you about Jade Cargill? It tells you that she's not up to snuff. But it also tells you that Triple H doesn't know how to perceive and evaluate talent and will only push people in part because of who they were and who they can piss off. If Jade Cargill had came over from MLW or the NWA, she'd still be in the minors with the NXT group. But because she came over from AEW and Triple H thought he could stick it to Tony Khan, he put a
yeah.
rocket to her ass and try to send her to the moon. But all that
It,
ended up coming out was a whole lot of
it's
nothing.
yeah, and it's weird too because now I'm seeing online where a lot of people are calling for them to split her and Bianca because they feel like that she's holding Bianca back. Um,
Which is funny as hell because she's not holding Bianca back. She's the only reason Bianca's not being further exposed. Putting. I'm sorry, I got them confused. I thought you meant Bianca was holding Jade back. You're right. Jade is holding Bianca back. Bianca is a much bigger star than being tagged or being slopped with a rando who, for lack of a better term, is greenish goose shit. Bianca should be
yeah,
in the headline. It should have been Bianca versus Bailey in that SummerSlam.
yeah, which is weird because they already ran that program, and the only person in the whole full horsewoman that she hasn't beaten is Charlotte, and it's crazy. You talk about the stars, and you know how WWE fans are. They think just because they see a bunch of people that there's a bunch of stars.
Mm-hmm.
They don't know. You looking at in terms of just top three off the head: Bianca, Rhea, Charlotte. Because we all know the narrative. The minute she steps foot back in there, like they better enjoy all these thirst traps she's posted down. Because the second she steps back, we know she's jumping the line.
Mm-hmm.
Um, like they go like who they think like EO, uh, Kyrie, Oscar, they can definitely go, but they aren't. We know Oscar's getting older. Not exactly what she was when she was running it roughshod over NXT. They just kind of went through the whole thing with EO, and I think even Kyrie had her time, but they clearly are committed on keeping them in a faction. Dakota just went down again, and she hasn't really had any time to pick up consistent momentum because she unfortunately stays injured. You're not going to this new God, the Pure Fusion Collective, which is Baszler, um, the Zoe Stark girl, and the returning
Yeah,
Sonya
yeah,
Deville.
Sonya Deville. I was gonna say I know who you're talking
Yeah,
about.
the Pure Fusion Collective. I don't know who came up with that name, but that's ass. Like, you know, Liv's doing what she's doing, but a lot of that fire is coming off because she's feuding with somebody like Rhea. She can hold on, but Rhea's the girl, so it's like it's not a lot that you can do with that, and it sucks because it's benefiting the tag team is benefiting Jade in the fact that she's been able to lean on Bianca, learn from Bianca, all the ropes, this, that, and third. Bianca can pick up a lot of the heavy wrestling work, and she gets a break from not constantly having to be in the main event scene and not be champion because that's a whole nother burden in itself when she was doing that for so long. But at the same time, it's like people kind of they notice it when the people aren't there. They complain about it when they are, but they more so when they're not there. And you don't have a roster full of Bianca Belairs. You got more Zelina Vegas than you got Bianca Belairs.
Yeah.
So I don't know what you can do. Like you said, it might have been better if she just went to NXT, but like you said, it felt like they viewed it. She was too big not to be in people's face on the main roster, but she wasn't good enough to directly just put on her own because it's weird too because in every interview that she does, people are like, you know, who do you want to feud with? And names like Belair, and Charlotte and Nia and Rhea keep coming up, and I'm just looking like y'all just assume that if she breaks up and goes with them just because it looks good on paper, that it's gonna go off well. Like if they break her and Bianca up and she ends up feuding with Bianca, she's gonna get walked.
Mm-hmm.
If they feud her with Rhea, she's gonna get walked. Now they're gonna pull the AJ Styles of it all, where they can make a broomstick look good. And even in as much flack as we give Charlotte, she'd be put in that position too. But it's not go finish well for Jade in that regard. That's the last thing she needs to be doing right now. But again, people just assume that it's gonna be this feud of the match of the year because she looks like she should be the person to be in that spot, and that's not where she is right now.
And I wonder if she'll ever be there, truthfully. But the conversation as a whole is about Triple H. And
Yeah,
while we got sidetracked a little bit, I do want to point out that I do think Jade Cargill is the perfect indication on the failings of Triple H as a promoter, as a booker. I think the failings of Bobby Lashley, the SummerSlam card as a whole, was atrocious. These 5 match events, the fandom once supported them, but you can tell they're waning. You can tell people are no longer as invested in them as they were 4 months ago, 5 months ago. And I think in due time you're gonna see more and more fans kick out, so to speak,
that
of the
that's
5 match.
that's that's interesting. Real quick though, if you had to put somebody on the opposite of, I guess, Jay being an example of all the things he's not getting, on the other side of some of the things that he is, I guess, hitting, uh, in a direction that can be deemed good, whatever that feels like. Would you say somebody like Breaker or somebody else?
Breaker's a good name. I feel like so the argument with Jay, right? The argument with Jay is that he's a big name who's not being pushed well. So on the inverse side, we have to look for a not so big name that's being pushed well. I don't
Yeah,
think Jay qualifies because I think Jay is limited, and I feel like he's in the perfect role that he is because if you actually try to build a main event feud around him, it's going to suck. We've
yeah,
seen that too many times with him as a solo star. So the inverse of him would probably be Nia Jax, someone who isn't very talented, who isn't over and is being given way too much. Like Braun Breaker's talented. You look at
yeah.
Trick Williams, talented. You look at Gunther, talented. You look at oh, even better, Solo Sikoa. He is the inverse of Jay. Solo Sikoa does not have the popularity. He does not have the notoriety. He does not have the name value, and yet he's main eventing SummerSlam against Cody in 30-minute matches. Terrible, terrible. The bracelet stuff, the necklace stuff, it's all so tacky. And Triple H is such a bad booker.
Yeah, when it real quick, because like you said, it is about Triple H, but you did point to Jax real quick. Do you think the reason why she's getting the praise now is because nobody's getting injured, and it feels like she's finally reached the spot that years ago, I guess she should have been coming out of NXT?
I don't think she's being praised at all. I think what you're seeing are the same 40 troll accounts. I maybe troll accounts, not the right word, but the same 40 farming accounts. Propagating the narrative that Nia Jax is this whole embraced cool character, when all of the real wrestling accounts that I follow
Yeah,
have nothing to say about her. Not good, not bad, and that is when you've truly lost the plot. Now that's a small minor fan grouping of the fandom, right? It's not perfectly them, but when you look at the larger picture, I do think they are emblematic of what could be the larger picture. Not a guarantee that they are the larger picture, but enough that they will likely reflect it. I don't think a lot of people care about Nia Jax. good, bad, or otherwise. I think she's the new X-Pac. I think that when we talk about heat, go away heat, I think Nia Jax has it. So bad that people aren't even talking about her because they just ignore
Yeah, the true depth of somebody in wrestling indifference.
her. Mm-hmm.
Um, so yeah, but that's it is interesting because with the whole Triple H thing, he's getting praised maybe not by MVP and Lashley and interviews by everybody else, I guess, for the backstage morale and work environment. Which I can understand because I can only imagine just how legitimate pins and needles it was under somebody as off the beaten path, if you will, is the best way I can say it. That Vince was, but yeah, there's a lot of room for improvement.
Yeah, Vince wasn't good. There's no denying that. Like even to a monicum of degree. I think when you look at all the good things that is going on right now, and there are good things. That's not to thumb your nose at everything, but all the good things that exist right now exist in part because he inherited it. The Judgment Day stuff, Rhea Ripley, um, just a smorgasbord of like talented guys and gals who were where they are because of where they came from before.
Yeah, and I think more so than anything else for and I get it. Like I said, people just sometimes people just want to praise somebody. They were already fans of them, and like I said, you comparing it to ones Vince did, I get it. But even more so than anything else, and they put out a whole documentary about it. Triple H wasn't finna crown Cody.
No,
He wasn't gonna crown. If it was left up to him, you would have gotten The Rock versus Roman.
and
If
then The
it's not
Rock.
for The Rock, not for our boy The Rock having a bruised ego and like I can't walk away from this getting booed. Like I got to I'm always gonna be the people's champ. I have to walk away from this with people still rocking with me. Uh, pun not intended. So the fact that he made them pivot into what happened and Cody finally finishing this story and Rock probably having one of the best runs of his career. Um, because he didn't necessarily want to have a bruised ego. It's probably the best tale more than anything else. Like people will just they will watch that and not even bring that up. But again, professional goalpost moves, right? So
Yeah, man, everything's a long-term story, and everything's already been written, and Triple H rewrote history in 2007 to make sure 2021 could be what it is, or 2024 could be what it is. Okay.
like Chad, back up, give him the apron, let him cook.
Yeah, I'm good. I'm not going to let anyone cook. That'll take us to the end of this week's show. RealNerdCorp.com, RealNerdCorp.com. Check that out. Twitter is NERDCORP. Marcus, you can be found on Twitter at ParadoxKid, PARADOXKID.
That's me.
You can also find him on his other podcast, The True Penny Show, TRUEPENNYSHOW. That's The True Penny Show. You can find me on Twitter at Chad Nerdcorp, CHADNERDCORP, and on the Instagram at Chad Sweato, at CHADSPHOTOHUT. Be sure to tune in next Tuesday for another edition of the Wrestling Underground podcast. And until then, remember to. I skipped a part. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for checking us out. Thanks for giving us a chance. Remember, as always, to watch more wrestling. There it is. And Marcus, take us home.
Good night.